What is up, my dashing dwarves? It's Chris with Tabletops and Tentacles, and this is Die Alone, a solo RPG and game podcast. This week we'll be discussing Delve from Anna Blackwell, but before we dive into the game discussion, a bit of news and updates on the last week. First off, a couple of Kickstarter games and RPGs that I'm backing that are relevant to the audience of this podcast. Tim Fowers, who I just talked about in the last episode with Burgle Bros 2, has Paperback Adventures live on Kickstarter now, and it is a novel solo word game. So this is sort of based off of the paperback and hardback games that he's released previously. Still features really cool art from Ryan Goldsberry, but this is a solo roguelike game system where you play a protagonist from one of the wild brainstorming sessions and you conquer a menagerie of pulp novel characters. And it's a deck building style thing. It's got a couple of little trays that you move components around on, and then as you spell words with letters, the different icons in the corners mean different things that your character can do as you're playing. And I think this looks really interesting. I am not 100% sold on it just because it's like $80 to get all three characters plus the base game. And I don't think that's an unreasonable amount of money, but it's really hard for me to spend $80 on a solo game. But they do, they have a stretch goal to add a second player co-op option, and that makes it a lot more appealing for me and my brother to be able to sit down and play. But I think it looks fantastic. I think the as always, the art and graphic design is spot on for what it is, and the game itself looks really cool. They've got like a custom playmat you can add for like $6, and I am pledging for it right now. We'll see where my finances are sitting in 17 days when it finishes up, whether I can stick at the all-in pledge or not, but it looks really cool, and I love it. It's got 3 different characters that you can play. There's the damsel, the ex machina, and then a mystery character that they haven't revealed yet, that they're revealing on the 25th, I believe, and I'm assuming it's going to be Lady of the West, but we'll see. Also live on Kickstarter right now from Little Rocket Games for the next 17-ish days is the Blue Collection, which is a collection of 3 micro games that you can get all in on for about $40. That includes Cyberdoom Tower, Insert Coin to Play, and One Card Dungeon. I have very, very little interest in Insert Coin to Play. It's like a party game roll and write, but Cyberdoom Tower is a solo or co-op 16-bit run and gun where you're collecting passcodes to unlock the top floor of the Cyberdoom Tower and defeat the AI who controls the machines and save the world. And One Card Dungeon is a solo dice placement 32-bit dungeon crawl played on a single card where you're fighting through 12 different levels to reach the final prize, the Scepter of MacGuffin, which is great. The art's gorgeous in these. It's this beautiful 1632-bit art style. The colors all really spot on, and they're nice, simple, little compact games. They've got a couple of stretch goals going as well, including like custom dice and a playmat and that kind of thing, which, you know, is fun, but I'm not really super sold on those. But the games themselves look really cool. I'm really wavering back and forth on which level to pledge on it, because I think both Cyberdoom Tower and One Card Dungeon look fun, but I'm not really that interested in the party games, so I'm kind of bouncing back and forth whether to go all in or just get one of them. But that is called the Blue Collection, and it's live on Kickstarter right now. And finally, Tanya DePass is running an original Afrofuturist tabletop role-playing game called Into the Motherlands. And this looks fantastic. It's not a solo RPG, but just purely as a setting, I think it looks amazing. Its art is beautiful and fantastic. It's a full diverse cast of creators that they've pulled into this, and it's a genuinely unique RPG world, which is an instant sell for me. The system looks pretty solid. I haven't dove too deep into it. I know they have like a live play that you can watch if you want to see how the system works. But I'll be honest, the theme alone sold me on this, and I was all in. There's a lot of ground to cover with it, so I will just leave a link to it in the description below if you want to go check it out. But it looks amazing. This is their opening paragraph here. 1,000 years ago, African Emperor Mansa Musa sent an expedition to the New World that never arrived. In the mythos of Into the Motherlands, these explorers were instead transported to a strange new world, far, far away. Over the centuries, the descendants of Mansa Musa still struggle to flourish on Musalia, a world that was once alien to them but is now home. In this all-new tabletop role-playing game, you'll learn about their diverse cultures, see what terrifying enemies await them, and find out if they can continue to survive in their adopted home world. The possibilities are endless. I think this looks so cool. They have different groups of them that are like humanoid plant hybrids. There's a hyena type humanoid, and I just think it looks gorgeous. So that is called Into the Motherlands, and it has almost a month to go still and is just absolutely killing it over on Kickstarter, so go check it out if you are interested in it. I know they have a PDF for, I think it's $25, and then you can get the physical book for like $50 or something like that. So I apologize that this episode is a little late this week. Things have just been kind of weird here, but I will try and start making Thursday my regular upload day for Die Alone. If anybody has any suggestions for a different day that would be better, let me know, but Thursday seems to work out pretty well as far as my overall release schedule, aside from this week. As always, if you'd like updates on the release, anything I'm playing, or if you'd just like to see other stuff I'm working on, we do have a Die Alone Facebook group over at groups, facebook.com/groups/alonepod. I'm also on Patreon at patreon.com/deeplydapper. Welcome to our new patrons that joined this week. I hope you enjoy being here and being a curiosity with Die Alone and Deeply Dapper. Other than that, I don't have much else to talk about. If you are followers of us on Kickstarter, we just released the Troika hack of A Bug's Guide to the Shimmer out to backers. I'm waiting on the proof of that. Hopefully that'll be here soon. And the zine version of the core rules for 3-6 are really close to going out to the beta readers on things. So I'm really super excited about that, obviously. But let's get into Delve. I'm really excited about talking about this game. So it's really interesting. Delve is a map drawing game about building a dwarven hold and exploring a vast world beneath the ground. You play the overseer of one such hold, and your goal is to find the Void Crystal, a mysterious gemstone that the Underking has tasked you with retrieving. If you manage to find it, your hold will be granted riches beyond compare, and tales of your exploits will be told across the realm. So this is a really interesting game, and I was instantly into it, and it's definitely one of those that I will probably go back to regularly. I'll probably pimp out a little bit as I play. I already have a Spotify playlist that I'll link below if you want to check it out. That's all like dwarven fantasy music and stuff. But for the most part, I just really enjoy drawing maps anyway, and having sort of a guided gamified version of map drawing is a blast for me. So Anna Blackwell created this. It's let me see how many pages it is, like 48 pages or something like that. And it's a fairly compact zine, but my goodness, there's a lot in this thing. So when I first started playing this, I went in completely blind. I opened it up and just started reading the rules. I had my little graph paper sitting in front of me and my pencil and my little microns and everything, and I didn't really know exactly what I was getting into here. So it sounds fairly simple on the surface. To play Delve, you have a series of prompts and you have a certain amount of resources. There's trade goods and there are resources, and they're each represented by a couple of the different suits in the deck of cards that you play with. To play this, you ideally need a deck of cards, some tokens or markers, and like a die or two, and then some paper. And as you play the game, you have a certain amount of resources that you can spend to build rooms or expand your hold or dig deeper or recruit assistants. And you can trade different goods between your trade goods and your resources to sort of balance what you're spending things on against what you're finding as you're diving deeper into this mountain. And there were parts of this game that I absolutely adore, and there are other parts that killed me every single time I played. So as you're playing this, you have a certain amount of resources. You can decide what next step you want to take to building your hold, whether you want to build a forge or a hospital or a temple or something like that deep in the depths, or if you want to add a staircase leading down to the next depth of the mountain. And as you do this, you're also turning over cards that either give you more resources, or they trigger some sort of natural formation that you stumble across, or a enemy of some sort that appears in the depths. And that's basically the game as far as that's concerned. That's what you do each turn. You spend resources as you'd like, you delve deeper into the thing, and you react to the delving. However, there is so much to this game regarding all of that I was initially sort of overwhelmed about it. And not in necessarily a bad way, just in this is a lot more than I expected diving in. So it took me about a week and a half to really play it often enough that I was comfortable enough with the system and the options. So when you are building rooms, you can choose between 25 plus rooms, plus there are traps and barricades and soldiers to recruit, and there's 6 different types of recruits that you can do, and they can only be in certain rooms, and they offer a different amount of power. I'm boggled at how much stuff is crammed into this 48-page zine, because that doesn't even touch on spells and ancient monstrosities and legendary finds and adventurers and all of the different stuff that you can come across in Delve. And I think that's both to its positive and to its detriment, honestly. There were times while playing this, as I was sitting down and drawing my little maps and coming up with these little worlds, that sometimes it was a little much for me. Like, I would have almost preferred like a more streamlined one, like Trench, I guess. I don't know. Something that has a little less upkeep and world building aspect to it, because the combat in this is fun. It's really interesting because it's sort of like a chase through the dungeon, so it gives you a little bit of that dungeon crawl aspect to it, as the creatures that you find do different things. They either dig towards the surface or dig down or try to escape through your exits. When you combine like the dungeon crawl aspect, the discovery aspect of finding natural formations, and the world building aspect of building your own rooms and hold in this, it really does start to... It ramps up in a really fun way, but it also becomes a little overwhelming until you get really familiar with the system and the options presented to you. And I don't think that's a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, but it was something more involved than I was expecting for this game. And I think, like, knowing it now, I'm super into going back to this at times and just saying, hey, I want to play some Delve. And it's fairly easy to just crank out and have ready to go. I've stopped one map, done a different one, and come back to that map. And overall, I think that it works really well as a solo game. However, I actually played this with my brother as well. And as a co-op game, this is super fun because we kind of assigned different things to each other, and we talked about what we were going to do on each turn, and it made the game a little longer, but it does work really well as sort of a co-op heads together making decisions about building a hold type of game too. And I was really impressed with that, because that's something that a lot of the other solo games I've played so far don't work for. Like The Wretched is not a good team game. It doesn't work that way. And I think part of that is that so many of the solo games revolve around isolation and emotion and telling a story through your own thoughts and the way you play the game, whereas this, you are literally in charge of 100 dwarves crawling around in the undergrowth here, and it's a very different game experience. And I do think that it's one that lends itself to a certain type of mood a lot more than the other ones do. And like I said, that's to both its benefit and detriment to an extent. One thing that I love is the map drawing, obviously. I think it's really fun. I think that it's sort of a therapeutic thing. But there were other little upkeep things that I found myself wishing I could streamline a little bit as I played. The deck of cards is one of those things where you use it as a dice substitute if you don't have any dice to play with. And theoretically, you should be shuffling that same card back into the deck every time you pull a round through, because you've got a couple of cards you've pulled to represent dice rolls if you're not using dice, and then you have like a card to represent something you've discovered on that turn. And I found myself shuffling the cards back in every 6 or 7 cards that I pulled out, because the constant reshuffling of the deck was just... I get why it was done. It was done in part to sort of give a certain level of percentage of expectation of what you're going to get each time. But in actual execution, I felt like that part was a little off to me. And the less I shuffled, the more like kind of off the game got. And so there's a few things that I've considered changing as far as that's concerned, just purely for my own enjoyment of the game, like doing maybe a token system in a bag or something like that, where I could just throw them all in and shake them up and pull it out. I'm so bad about playing something and wanting to pimp it when it's this kind of thing, because one of the things that appeals to me about solo RPGs is that it is literally like a zine, and then I'm like, oh, I should get some coins and make some tokens and do... And I think part of it is just that it's because I'm here by myself and I'm trying to enhance the play experience versus playing with somebody else in the room kind of thing. But I'm awful about it, and if you guys don't like that, I apologize, but I can't stop myself from seeing it and being like, oh, I should change this, or I could tweak this a little bit. And one of the things I do love about these indie solo games is they're super into that too at the same time. Like, I made a fillable map sheet for this that you can pull up that has like stalactites and stalagmites on it, because I got tired of drawing that part of the cave after my 4th map I drew. And like I posted it on there, and Anna retweeted it and that kind of thing. And I think that that's really cool. Like, they support hacks of the games and adjustments to it. And as I played this, I could already see myself wanting to do like a Shimmer adaptation of 3 Dice 6 as a delve game. I think that could be super fun. And that's not a criticism of these games. I think, if anything, it's a celebration of how great the systems are, that you want to live in them longer and do more with them. And that's, I mean, just Anna alone, she's released a sci-fi version of this that I'm really into checking out. It's called Umbra, and you're controlling like a space station instead of a dwarven hold. And that might suck me in a lot more than this does. As much as I enjoy this, and I like the fantasy trappings of the traditional dungeon crawl, the idea of a sci-fi base is really exciting to me. That said, the maps that I did make in Delve were fun as hell. One of them got flooded right away, and water is my bane in these games because it's a neat system. It follows gravity, and so it'll flow a certain distance, and it'll go down ladders and flood things. And to get free of the menace, you have to build barricades and then drain the rooms or put in pumps and that kind of thing. First of all, the fact that that system exists in this boggles my mind. The amount of mechanics and trickiness behind all of this is crazy. Like, there were little things that happened when I'd uncover a monster or a natural formation that played into stuff that I'd already done so perfectly that it felt like it had been planned, despite the fact that it was all totally random. I'm amazed at how nice the system is for that type of experience, where you're just like, oh, look what I just found. I discovered a satanic clown church right next to the temple that I just built, and then I flooded the whole thing on accident. And I have this weird unlucky streak where the second I build a barracks and a hospital, everything gets flooded with poisonous gas. And so I did not survive. I never won this game, but it was really fun to keep going back to it. And I played it 4 essential different ways. I ended up actually playing it about 6 times over the last 2 weeks, but I played it 4 major different ways. Number 1, I did it sort of the way it was intended as I played, in that I plopped down my 1-inch grid, and as things happened, I drew them with my microns, and just nice little details. I drew silly little dwarves doing things, and golems slaving away at forgotten forges, and things like that, which was a blast, and I really enjoyed doing that. However, it got a little tedious after a while because I didn't die right away in that game, shockingly. And so the more detailed the map got, the longer the game took and the less I started getting out of the experience and more out of the drawing. So for the next one, I tried to find kind of a little bit more of a balance of that. I printed up my little map grid that I made, and the artwork was a little more basic. Didn't do as much detail in it. I played with the design a little bit as I went. And that was I think that worked better. I did a lot worse at that game, so that's probably not a fair judge, but I enjoyed it in a way that was sort of different from the other one. This one I had more of a cohesive dungeon map than I did on the previous one, because the other one I was trying to tell a story through the art as I was going. Both really fun, both very different ways of playing. So for number 3, I grabbed a whole pile of colored markers, and I used different markers and cubes, like game cubes, on the map itself to represent different events and things as they happened. So when I got flooded, I put a bunch of blue cubes along it to represent those rooms being flooded, and that was a blast. I actually really enjoyed that system of play, where I had sort of that tactile board game feel to it fairly easily. Like, you could just as easily have done that with coins or pennies or something like that. But the cubes representing the water, and then the creatures, and then my soldiers, I used tiny little dice, tiny little 6-sided dice representing the different factions that you could have represented on the board. And that type of additional tactile feel to it, it gamified it a little more, and I found my play a little more fast-paced. And I think that that's actually to the benefit of the game. I went into Delve thinking, oh, I'm an artist. I need to draw everything perfectly in this and make it look amazing as I'm playing. And I came to realize that It's part of the game, absolutely, but the strategy and the flow of doing things in Delve is just as important, if not more so, than the map itself, which is really funny because it's a map drawing game. So for the last time I played, just for shits and giggles, I took my grid, I took some colored pencils, and I literally just wrote the word down. And I couldn't stop myself from doing little doodles every once in a while, but instead of drawing a forge, I just wrote forge across a room. And sometimes I'd throw a little note in that meant, oh, I could have this many people in the barracks and that kind of thing. It feels blasphemous to say so, but I kind of enjoyed that method of play the best, because I could just pull out a piece of paper, a deck of cards, and a few coins and start playing right away. And it totally changed the play flow of the game in a way that I was thinking more about the logistics of the world building and delving than I was the artwork. And I think that could just be something with the way my brain works, but I do love that the system of Delve and what she's created here is so versatile that it worked both ways really effectively. And this isn't even touching on the other stuff in here. There are spells and ancient monstrosities. I had a giant underground kraken appear at one point that filled my tunnel and killed half of my guards. And I had a alien queen insect thing show up and start spawning nests all around it's really cool. I definitely recommend Delve without reservation, particularly if you have an interest in sort of that SimCity meets a dungeon crawler in a way that I was genuinely surprised with. I think that ultimately one thing that I may end up doing with this is creating some single page printouts that I could do that have a sum up of what rooms I can do and how much they would cost, because flipping through 5 pages to figure out which rooms to build each turn got a little overwhelming, and I started half-assing things and forgetting to build certain things, and that took away some of the enjoyment at times. So I think there's definitely ways to take this game and say, okay, we're going to tweak this, we're going to adjust this to suit my play style. And that's not saying that the game is flawed. What it's saying is that this game has enough flexibility that you can look at it and say, oh, this is how I would prefer to play it, and it can do that. And that's not the case with a lot of the other games that are out there. Even The Wretched, as much as I love it and I love all of the spin-offs from it, there are aspects of that if you don't embrace and play how it's intended, you don't get the full experience of the game. And there's so much in Delve, and it's so elegantly slotted together that you can pull one or two out of the slots and still have everything work really well. And that's mind-boggling to me. I love it. So that's Delve. I hope I explained it as much as I did just talk about my learning curve with it. And if I make it sound daunting, it's not that daunting. It really is just 4 steps each round, and most of it is just deciding which rooms to build and seeing what you find when you go into the tunnels, which was my personal favorite part, honestly. I could have left off all of the city building stuff and just had the pure dungeon crawl going through and discovering natural formations and creatures, and still had a blast with this game, and it still would have fulfilled a certain niche of my needs, as well as this did a lot of the others. A lot of fun. I really enjoyed Delve. I'm genuinely excited about checking out Umbra and the other hacks and aspects and rule sets and stuff for this. There's even a couple of optional rules in the back and challenges that I may just not be good enough at to play. But I love that it has that in there, and that option is there for you to modify your game if you want to play it a different way, if you want a treasure hunting challenge or kill a certain number of creatures, that kind of thing. So I definitely recommend Delve. I will leave links to it below. You can check it out on itch. You can get physical copies of it. I think it's on drive-thru as well. It's a really tightly designed, really cool little game that I'm going to have to do a little more with at some point here and really check out that sci-fi version and what other different ways you can play this there are. Next week, we're going to be playing 4 Against Darkness. We'll see how this goes, but I don't know if it's going to be my type of game, but we'll see. One of the things I love about dungeon crawls so much is the unpredictable aspect of you and your partners, and as you play, how it happens and that kind of thing, which is ironic since I made a solo dungeon crawl aspect to 3-6 be so prominent. But 4 Against Darkness is a solitaire dungeon delving game that may also be played cooperatively. No miniatures are needed. All you need is this book, a pencil, 2 dice, and grid paper. You choose 4 characters from a list of classic types: warrior, wizard, rogue, halfling, dwarf, barbarian, cleric, elf. You equip them and venture into dungeons created by dice rolls and your own choices. You fight monsters, manage resources, grab treasure, dodge traps, find clues, and even accept quests from the monsters themselves. Your characters will level up, becoming more powerful with each game, if they survive. So I do like the look of this game. I think it's really interesting. I think the balancing of the 4 characters is either going to be my favorite part of this or something I hate. And I'm actually really curious to see which it is. We'll find out next week on Die Alone. You can find 4 Against Darkness on pretty much any site. I'll have links below to drive-thru. You can get it from Amazon. I think that's where I ended up getting mine, was the POD through Amazon, and the book's great. It's a good copy, good quality. So I'll put links below. You can also find them on our Facebook group or over at tabletopsandtentacles.com if you want to go there to link. As always, you can also follow along in our group on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/alonepod. And I will be kind of posting my thoughts as I play and as I go along. And I'll also be posting pictures of some of the maps from playing Delve and stuff on there, so you can kind of get some peeks at the disasters I created as I played. You can also find me on Twitter at DieAloneRPG. And I'm not on there a ton, but I try to tweet at least once or twice a day. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting indie creators. If you're a game designer and you have a game you'd like me to play, or if there's a solo game out there you think I should check out, message me on social media through the contact page at tabletopsandtentacles.com or at tabletopsandtentacles@gmail.com. It's pouring outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but that's why it suddenly sounds different in here. Whee! It's raining in Idaho. It's exciting. As always, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again real soon. And remember, we all die alone.